Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this YD Live with Harsh. Harsh is a call it current former IITian and YLP Admit. We're going to talk about his journey to 740. Kind of divided into two different parts. One is what does it take to get to a 710 that you came to us with, and then a 710 to a 740, and then what does it take right from not just from the learning piece, but what kind of diligence, what kind of courage does it take to really go in and take the test one when you already a have an admit and b have a 740 a 710 already. So Harsh, welcome to this, and kind of let's start with a brief background on who you are.
So yeah, so as you said, I'll always be an IITian, not a current
Mm,
or former. I'll always be an IITian. I'm quite
mm,
proud of that. But yeah, so I graduated from IIT Madras in the COVID batch of 2020,
mm,
and post that I've been working in a management consulting company. Uh, since in my final year at IIT, I did
mm,
apply for the YLP program, and it took
mm,
some time, but I'm glad that after clearing all the rounds, I did get in to that
mm,
program. So that came off as quite a good news.
mm,
Uh, so I had given my GMAT to clear the ISB YLP. Right, it's one of
mm,
the criterion that's judged. So post receiving the admit, I guess there was this one sense in me that okay, if why not give it again, and let's try and see if we can improve our score because you already have a fantastic admit with you.
mm.
Uh, let's see if we can aim higher. So I guess that's pretty much been the philosophy of my life that if you have something, let's try one level higher.
Improve on it if you can.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you have the luxury of time, which I did
Mm,
have, COVID times, you're all at home.
mm,
So that's how it started. And that's when, so during my 710, I wasn't with e-GMAT, but
mm,
given that it was going to be my last attempt, I was very clear that I'm not going to give it again since it takes time. It's an expensive exam. So it became very clear that it has to be with a good service provider. And that's how I landed with e-GMAT.
mm.
And I took their course.
Okay, so I think let's kind of go back to that 710 attempt or so. So what was your split in the 710 attempt, and then um, what did you feel you did well, and what did you feel were the areas that you needed help with?
So I remember it was a Q50. That's what I remember for sure. And I guess it was I think a V36, V37.
Okay,
I close to that.
yeah, we should
I'm
be about a V36. Yeah, 735 or
yeah
36 should take you to
yeah
710.
V35, V36. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I
Okay.
mean, so yeah, pretty much that was that.
Mm,
So, to answer your second question as to what were my thoughts then, so probably I felt that verbal could have been better. I mean, so that was obviously a point. I had made peace with the fact that okay, I can't get more than a Q50.
well,
I
you did
had
get a
made peace with that fact.
Q51, but
Yeah, I mean, but even when I was preparing for my second attempt and all,
Mm,
I knew that okay, I'm not going to cross 50 because it needs that extra level of patience
mm,
which I don't have honestly.
mm,
But glad I did cross that. But uh, so yeah, I mean that was pretty much the thoughts at that time. I had given that online. I'd
enhanced
gone to a
online.
center. No, not GMAT online. The second one was the first one was in center.
Got
I
it.
was in a test centers. I'd written that essay and everything, and
Mm.
even my I forgot what you call that essay that you write in the end.
Analytical writing assessment.
Yeah, analytical writing assessment, the AWA. So even though I'd scored the average marks there.
Oh, so you weren't
I
a
guess
6 dot, it was like a 4 dot or 5 dot.
it was a 4 or 5. So even that was a bit upsetting that okay maybe
Mm.
it's not the best score. So but yeah, given that ISB did happen and I had like this motivation to go out. So yeah, I mean that's when I decided to give it
Mm.
one final shot.
Got it. Okay, that sounds good. Um, so what were the you talked about verbal? In verbal, did you have a feel? Okay, you've got to do better here. These areas that you need to improve, because yes, clearly verbal was an area for improvement.
Yeah, I guess verbal on the whole, right? I mean it wasn't just any one particular part of it
Mm.
or any one particular topic. It was probably the entire module needed rework.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was the strategy. So from the very beginning, it was quite clear that Quant 50 will be there, but I need
Mm.
to take that verbal up.
Got it. So, how did you start preparing within the e-GMAT portal? I mean, what did you do first? Did you have a study plan that you started with?
So the plan was quite simple, right? I mean, quant is going to take my side, but I need to figure out verbal. So 95% of my time preparation had to be in verbal.
Hmm.
And, so, that's where, the initial months, so it probably took 3 months in preparation, but those 3 months
You also had
were,
the time.
yeah, yeah, I had the time. Like, not a lot of it because my job was going on simultaneously. So you had to manage with that.
Hmm.
But having said that, you for the 3 months, I guess 2 months were purely dedicated to verbal.
No, but
I
what did
mean,
you start with in verbal? I mean, did you start with
so
sentence
verbal,
correction or critical
yeah, yeah, I
reasoning?
started with sentence correction because that's probably the one wherein you have to really watch the videos and
Hmm.
understand a lot of concepts which you probably didn't learn in school.
Hmm.
So, so that was the main focus. I mean, there was a clear focus on understanding these concepts. There's a clear
Hmm.
focus on understanding why things the way they were, and at the same time, leave something to just okay that these are rules, so you have to just follow them.
Okay.
So so that's how, so there was a very clear focus. Like every video, I did see every video in every
Mhm.
topic in verbal. I practiced every problem that was there.
Mhm.
uh, so
And
I
you
guess
had good
that helped.
scores too. You had really good scores too. We actually, I think Karthik can share the PDF. We looked at your course stats, and you did a very good job going through every aspect
Yeah.
of the course.
So it was
Um,
very clear that I didn't want to, be overconfident or lazy about any particular topic. It has to be done. Because it's the last time I'm giving it.
So now, how did this? So I mean, you went through the sentence correction course. You'd taken the GMAT once. You had around that 88 percentile overall in verbal. But as you went through this, and you were diligent enough to do that, how did that approach to solving sentence correction questions change between your first and second attempt?
No, of course, like the first attempt was a lot of it was based on, the option elimination method.
The splits
And
method.
here, yeah, like you just, okay, this option's wrong, this option's wrong, this option's wrong. And
Hmm.
that's when you are left with one option. What
Hmm.
happens is that if it's an easy question, you can easily eliminate these options. But when it's a very difficult question, then it takes then it depends on luck. It's very hard to then eliminate an option. So, so I guess from a pure option rejection strategy to moving to an option rejection come option selection strategy.
Hmm.
I guess that's what changed in sentence correction, wherein all the concepts that had been discussed in the videos and through the practice questions came in handy. So,
Okay.
and
Okay.
also I guess there was a lot of focus on even understanding why you went wrong.
Mhm.
So that's where all these
Did you do
elaborate
this?
video solutions would
Yeah.
come
So did
into
you
the
do a
video.
strategic review of your mistakes in that case?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would also go through. So even when I was doing my questions,
Hmm.
I would always note down some questions that I knew that I'm not too sure about the answer, so
Hmm.
that even if I get them right, I would revisit them to see what was it that I was thinking correctly or what was it that I was thinking wrongly. So
Got it. Got it. Okay. Um, then after sentence correction, did you go to reading comprehension or critical reasoning?
So I moved on to reading comprehension first because again, that is a challenge. So even within reading comprehension, if I were to say there were these particular, see, I come from an engineering background, so and I work in a consulting company, so engineering, science, or business kind of passages, I was able to, I had interest in reading them, but I am not really exposed to the world of arts or literature or history.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, whenever I would have a passage from those particular topics, I would almost sleep off. I mean, there were times when I knew my mind is completely wandered. I'm not even just reading it, I'm doing it for the sake of doing it. So there was a very strong attempt to really enjoy reading these passages as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was
Okay.
that.
How did you do that? So, I mean, a lot of people struggle with that. And so, how did you go from, hey, I see a passage which talks about women emancipation, let's time to sleep, to oh man, I got to be interested in this?
So a lot of it came from reading. I mean, I forced myself to read. So every day.
You
So in
developed a love
those,
for it.
Yeah. So in those days of preparation, I actually finished *Sapiens*, which is a book on evolution of mankind, over
Yes.
450 pages. So I guess every day reading those 20, 15, 20 pages every day as a rule that I have to read it. So
Yeah.
that really helped. And I honestly, I'm way more interested in history now than I was then. It's because of that extra step that I had to take. So
One thing that you'll recognize in about 5 years is you learn way more from history than you learn from
absolutely,
science.
absolutely.
I've read *Sapiens* 3 times, by the way.
Wow.
So yeah, I have that in hard copy, soft cover, and I mean hardcover, soft cover, as well as on my Kindle. It's just
Wow.
one of those books where you read it again and you learn something
Yeah,
about it. You learn something about how humans have evolved, and
absolutely. I mean,
it's
great
an
book.
incredible book. Yes. Um, so yeah, absolutely. So that's good. So I mean, you really recognize you have a problem, and you said you've got to solve that problem. I think that taking that step, that this is required, I need to solve it, and then doing whatever is necessary. It may seem non-traditional, but making that effort to solve it is very important. That's good. So once you did that, once your attitude changed, what did you discover in approaching when you were approaching passages that related to history, or let's talk about two sides of history. One is the slavery, women emancipation kind of side of history. The other is also the war side of history, or the political side of history in that terms. So how did you feel reading passages then? What was
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was
That there was a marked level of interest. I mean, see, ultimately, I'm sure you understand this much better than anyone.
that?
But in tough RC passages, when you come down to the two options that sound very close and both seem right, it's only that one extra word that is there in that passage that has the capacity to change the entire meaning and everything. One however somewhere, or one
The
particular
transition
word
words,
somewhere.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, so when you read it with interest,
Mm.
you'll take that extra time to read it. Otherwise, you're just brushing it off under the carpet. But here you are taking that extra interest in reading it, probably even making sense of what is written, trying to visualize what is written,
Mhm.
and all that helps. Like that really helps in it extremely tough questions. It does.
I absolutely love when someone uses keywords and they say, "Hey, this helped me understand," or uses visualization as a term. I absolutely love that. It's something that we
Yeah,
want all of you to do when you're reading. Be interested in it and visualize it. And truly, GMAT RC is a very well written piece of text, from which you can learn a lot in a very short time. It takes about 3.5 minutes to read an RC, and
yeah,
there's a lot that you can get out of it. Most of it is true, by the way. Whatever's written
yeah.
out there, it's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
it's
So to give you a fun point, I guess you was reading something about uh, number of women in a country, like proportion of women in the country, and how if that reduces, that leads to increased level of prostitution and all, and that
yes.
sort of actually during the exam, I not during the exam, during a mock or something, I just went in that zone. That shit, it's actually right. Yeah, I mean, if there are
Mm.
less number of women, that really it does force. I mean, so I had to then ensure that I'm not getting too engrossed in a particular
Well,
subject.
that's the other side of it. You can get too engrossed
Yeah,
and not worry about
yeah,
going to the next question, want to read
yeah,
more about it. So we did this. We did SC. We actually moved to the meaning based approach. Then we moved. Then we did RC. We fixed the problems. And again, you didn't have a ton of problems. You had few problems. Isolating, fixing them is what let you get solve those difficult questions correctly. CR, you had specific issues. Boldface, you didn't approach them properly. Inference questions were an issue. So first of all, how did you diagnose that was an issue? Was it
so
a
yeah,
feeling?
that
Was it
actually
that?
that
Or
that came out quite clearly with Scholaranium.
okay.
Scholaranium really pointed it out that there are these three issues that you've got around. These are the three topics that you need to learn. And also, like, would also like to add that Atreya Roy from e-GMAT, who was my mentor, even he did a great job in
Mm.
catching these nitty-gritties and ensuring that they do come to my notice.
Okay.
So even that was really helpful.
Okay.
Uh,
In fact, Harsh's stats are there in the PDF that is shared up there. You can see how the stats showed that they were, and they clearly showed that these were the issues um, that you had. So, bold-faced questions. How did you change your approach towards them? What was your earlier approach versus what is the current approach?
So the earlier approach was quite simple. The boldface is a tough question. It only comes after you've done a lot of questions right. So you need not get this right. Let's move on to the next one and get that right. So that was a very wrong approach. But when you write exams, you always look for shortcuts and ways
So, would
around the
did you
system.
even approach a bold-faced question, or would you just randomly mark?
No, I would approach. I would read, but not
Okay.
with that diligence. It's just that
Tell me,
okay.
what would you do? What when you got a bold-faced question first attempt? How would you approach it, and then how did that approach change in the second attempt?
See, I mean, in the first attempt, if I get a boldface, I read the question. I quickly just come up with whatever's there in my mind. Okay, this is what it means. This is how these two are connected,
Hmm.
and just mark an option and go. It wasn't a typical fluke. There
Hmm.
was some attempt, like there were times when I would get it right, but largely it was based on let's get on with it.
Got it. What is it in the next attempt?
So the next attempt, I mean, there was so the minute I would see a boldface, I would realize that okay, it is a tougher question.
Hmm.
So let's ensure that you get this question right as well.
Hmm.
So I guess the focus was more on getting it right than
Hmm.
getting than moving on with it. So how it happened was especially reading that passage say 4 or 5 times. I never had the shortage of time. I am quite impatient to have that. So I would very comfortably finish each
You'd say,
section that
okay,
I
this is
had.
a weakness, so I got to spend more time on it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
want to
mean, I
make
was like,
sure.
I have the luxury of time. Why
Hmm.
not spend those extra 30 seconds to really make that
Hmm.
effort at least to get it right?
So you'd read properly, you'd classify the statements,
Yeah,
and make sure that you really say this one's a claim, this one's a fact, and this is how these are linked. It's
yeah,
very interesting how different people have different attitudes towards boldface. I mean, for me, boldface is a question that I would go and say I cannot get that wrong because the answer is right there. You're not looking outside the argument. You think about
yeah.
assumption-based questions, strengthen, weaken, or
Hmm.
argument-based questions, strengthen, weaken, assumption. You still have to. You have to think outside the argument. There is a possibility what you've thought may not be in the realm of the answer choices, or the test maker could have thought about something. Boldface, you the answer is in the argument. It's about structure of the argument, so you can't get it wrong. So for me, it was very exciting. I know for many people they hate boldface questions, but
Yeah.
for me it was like, man, I gotta get this right, and this is an opportunity to move to that next level. Now, difficult strengthen, difficult weaken questions, uber difficult ones is for me was like, okay, I got to make sure that I may get them wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not most likely I'm going to get them right, but I may get them wrong. But boldface was more always like I was always going to get this right, and then I have to be 100% certain before I mark that answer.
Yeah.
So, so it's interesting. So we talked about RC. So how much practice did you do in Scholarly? Do you remember?
Oh, wow. I guess
Guess.
at one point, my question bank was being exhausted, and it's only after writing the mocks that I would get a fresh set
Get
of
new
questions.
questions. Yes, yes.
So yeah, I mean, at one point I was told that I have to stop practicing now because I've exhausted a lot of the questions and I won't have anything left for the final weeks. So yeah, I mean, I did do that a lot. I mean, a lot of practice here.
As you said, you're an impatient person. You actually solved 790 questions in Scholaranium. I mean, you
Oh
still
wow.
had about, I think, about 310 left. We have upwards of 1100. I think right now closer to 1200 questions once you take all the mocks. Um,
Yeah.
but you took 790 in verbal Scholaranium. Quant, I think I'm just looking at your start. 560 in Quant Scholaranium or so.
Quant was, quite tight. That quant would be like a nice pastime for me.
Yeah,
Like,
I can guess that. You're starting on the Q50, you shouldn't be taking 560 questions. You should probably
yeah.
200 questions tops. You probably wanted to have fun, and that's where you did that. But coming back to verbal, so when you were solving questions, what was your attitude towards solving questions in Scholaranium, and how did the solutions? How did the feedback help you?
See, I guess Scholaranium was more at, like, especially see when you're looking at those videos and solving those questions, you've just learned that concept and you're applying it, right? So chances of you going wrong there are very less. If
If
unless you
you've
want,
gone
unless you
through it
unless yeah,
diligently, if you've gone
yeah,
through it diligently, they're yeah, you're gonna do it
yeah,
right.
yeah. Unless you've unless you've not understood the concept or anything. So, that, so doing that, it gives you that level of confidence that, okay, maybe I'm getting all questions right. It's only after you attempt, like a full, like questions can come in from any topic, from anywhere and all.
Mm.
That's when you probably realize that, okay, that, that one area you'd forgotten, you need to study that one area you
Mm.
had, that you need to,
The
probably
clarity
tweak your
still is not
understanding.
there to
Yeah.
that level. Yes.
Yeah. It's only when you do it in full
Mm.
status. And also, the time based
Mm.
approach helps, like when you're practicing under the time pressure, although it never mattered to me given how impatient I am.
Mm.
But if you do it in the time based pressure and all, it helps. So, one tip that always came in, given that I was doing things so quickly, I guess it came from Atreya, that why don't you take, I guess, 9 minutes for each set of 5 questions, and if you think you've crossed the 9 minutes, then you hurry up in the next section.
Mm.
But if you have some time left, then that you probably need to slow down a bit. So that was a great tip that he shared, and it actually improved my performance a lot.
It's one of those things. It's about what's wrong. Where is it that you need help? Most people have the opposite problem, as I say, and for you, it was like you weren't slowing down and you were missing out on questions, not because you didn't have the capability. It's just you didn't have the patience to do this,
Yeah,
and that's kind of where having that data in Scholaranium helps you, because what
yeah,
Atreya could see is that, hey, you are probably in terms of your timing, you are in the top 15 percentile or top 20 percentile, but in terms of your ability, you're still not hitting that 90th percentile. So it's like those things don't make sense.
yeah,
So let's kind of push the timing piece because we have luxury there, so that we can also push the ability piece. and and
absolutely.
and, and this is kind of where having those stats and correlating that um, can push your score even without you studying a whole lot more, just
Yeah,
by
yeah. I mean,
changing
I
tweaking the
don't think my
habit.
concepts. Yeah, I don't think my understanding of concepts improved. It's just the implementation of it.
It's the execution. I mean, a lot of it is execution. um, so you did that, and again, I can see that, when you think about the last, when we compare your accuracy, especially in hard questions, with when I look at last overall versus last 20, I've seen an improvement happen on verbal. Now, despite a Q50, you had weaknesses in quant, and some weak areas in quant. What were those, and how did you figure those out?
So yeah, again, that's where, so I mean, to give you context, I mean, I was quite happy with the Q50. I mean, honestly, I felt that, given my impatient nature, it's not in my blood to, possibly reach to Q51.
Mm.
I'd made peace with that fact that, okay, I can't go below Q50 because
Mm.
then that's not good. But I'm happy with Q50. I mean, if I get more than that, it's just bonus. So that was pretty much the approach. But so how quant practice happened was, I guess, in the last 2 or 3 weeks before the exam, I started practicing quant. That I need to get the mind running.
Mm.
I need to go with the entire zone. Like it's
So
like
to
you
get
going
back
to
in
the
the
gym,
zone
right?
to at least get that Q50.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You need to go to the gym, right?
Yes.
To You need
Yes.
to do your weights every day. You need to get your
Yes.
muscles exercise. So that's when I started with quant. So every day I would do 30 questions. Would take me around 40-45 minutes, 1 hour max.
Mm.
And just and I do have fun also. I really had fun doing that. But
Mm.
only after doing those questions, I realized that there was this one LCM GCD kind of topics in algebra. I think they come under algebra. So,
Number
so
properties,
yeah, number properties, exactly,
arithmetic.
number
Yeah.
properties. So that's why I was missing out because I didn't remember those things. Those things were probably taught in school some 10 years back, 15 years back,
Mm.
and I didn't really remember a lot of those, not concepts. Of course, I knew the concepts,
The
but
application.
uh, yeah, the application was some tricky formula, something was off. So
Mm.
that's when I actually saw. I was quite ashamed, but I did see the number
So the
properties videos
stats
as well.
showed you this
Yeah,
is where you need to work. Then you went to number properties
yeah,
and said you focused on the LCM GCD module and you did that.
yeah.
Okay.
I
Then did you
wasn't
come
too
back and
proud.
do those questions in Scholaranium
Yeah,
again?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, daily 30 question routine. So
Okay. So you close the loop.
yeah,
Okay. One of the things which is very interesting is so at e-GMAT we personalize your study plans. We give you that feedback. We give you these analytics. One of the other things that we are launching is now personalized courses. So in Scholarly, you see all of those expert AI pieces over there, where you have the luck factor put in, you have the rush through factor. I'm sure you got a
Hmm.
ton of rush through factor in
Yeah.
there. Those are mistakes that you were making. So so you have that AI piece that looks at you, looks at starts up a bunch of other folks, and really says, "Hey, this is where you could improve." With personalized, so we are adding a personalized course engine to the same expert AI, which can build personalized courses for you. So this is
Okay.
something that we are
Wow.
working on. We've been working on since July, and we'll be launching that. I think it's yeah, we'll start launching it on 3rd of December. So we have a launch session on second next Thursday, exactly a week from now,
Oh wow.
and and yeah, so join that. I want for folks who are here, you guys can register for that, figure out what that is and how it can help you get to that Q51 or Q50. If like Harsh, you're not aiming for that Q51, you might still end up getting it like him, but um, and get there faster, essentially.
Yeah.
So this is a brand new learning architecture that or personalization engine that we're building, and something that we plan to work on for the next year and a half or so. So we kind of um, on our roadmap we put in about 3 generations of it. This was the launch of that first generation. Yeah, we're really proud of what the tech team has done around this. Now let's come back to mock. You're talking about mocks, and you said you were super impressed with mocks. It's done by the same team that did mock. So how was your experience with taking the Sigma X mock? How accurate did you feel they were?
So yeah, I mean, the Sigma X mock were the, like the firstly you do it in a time-based manner. So so the clock's always ticking.
Hmm.
Secondly, you really understand. Let's do it. Let's structure it right. So one is the mock itself, and the second is the post mock experience.
Hmm.
So during the mock, of course, you do have it. You do have all your, you know, uh, your time-based
Hmm.
methods. Your adaptive questionnaire and all of that. So it really replicated the entire GMAT experience perfectly. I guess even the design of the screens and everything, the UI, and it's very strongly, you know,
From the ESR, it's an enhanced version of the ESR.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it really represents that. So when you go for an exam, you don't really have a lot of surprises. Oh, wow, what's this color? Anything can get you off in an exam.
Hmm.
But given that how closely it was modeled with the actual ones, it really
Hmm.
helped to be accustomed. It really helped me be accustomed to what can be expected. But as a mocks part now, let's look at the post mocks
Hmm.
part, right? So when firstly is the score. So I must say, I mean, I did get GMAT 740 in my mocks. In this 3 out of 6 mocks, I had a 740,
Okay.
and that was my real score as well. So it shows that it's quite accurate in its questionnaire, how the questions come in, and when do the particular difficulty, when does the difficulty escalate, when does it drop, and I guess it's really fine tuned well. I mean, otherwise it's not quite possible. It's
Hmm.
really following the actual algorithm quite well. Secondly, even the feedback, you of course have your set of solutions, you have your set of
So
you know
don't say the actual algorithm piece because no one knows that. And
yeah.
the GMSE actually has told us don't use the word actual algorithm when we
Okay.
we showcase how these mocks works. Like, don't use the word actual algorithm, please. They won't come to you; they would come to me. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's on a very similar algorithm. Yes, that we
Yeah,
have
and
been.
also, one thing that really helped, difference between a scholarly and a mock was also that, you get that graph of your difficulty as you progressed.
Yes,
You get that up and down. That's when you realize that, oh, maybe I should have been more patient in the first set of
and it
questions or the
tells you what's
second.
causing those up and downs. By the
Yeah,
way, it
yeah,
tells you.
yeah, exactly. So that was really helpful because I could understand that, okay, maybe 1 or 2 questions I'm not too sure, I may be wrong. So maybe in the third question I'll be extra diligent to ensure that I get it right so that the level doesn't drop and all.
Hmm.
So having that sort of visualization in mind was because of the mocks.
Okay, and they were designed with it. I mean, that's why we call it ESR plus analysis. You can within an ESR, you can't really figure out what's causing that difficulty level to drop.
Yeah,
With the online GMAT, you can't really get even the ability scores. That this gives you the
exactly.
ability
Yeah.
score that tells you why those difficulty levels are dropping, where is it that you're making mistakes or so, where are
Exactly.
you taking longer, and so where could you have done a better job just strategizing within that mock test,
Exactly.
or so. So I think that's pretty much all that I had with regards to this. I want to just ask a couple of other things. So you worked with Atreya. How helpful were the hyper specific plans that he provided for you?
Oh wow,
On
I mean that was a savior because honestly, there's a lot of data that
Hmm,
Scholar even throws at you, right? But you need someone as experienced as him to really pick out the key parts which you might probably take for granted.
hmm,
Say the timing piece, for
hmm,
example. That was a great intervention. I mean, fantastic one. Apart from that, he was the one who really pointed out a lot of my deficiencies in say in CR or something, and he would come up with personalized plans.
hmm,
That okay, that
hmm,
this week this is your target. You have to do these many questions from year. This is the difficulty level. This should be your time limit and everything. And based on that, he would check those scores. Because so once he came in, I didn't have to do anything, right? I would
hmm.
just give the mock, look at the score, and go to
You had
sleep.
to focus on learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas he would, look at, the back end part of it, understand where I'm going wrong and
Hmm,
come up with plans. So I guess in the last week, we had daily plans.
hmm,
Not even weekly plans. We had daily plans. Okay, today you're going to do these many questions from this
hmm,
topic. Why don't
hmm.
why don't you read this particular video? Why don't you see this particular video and, now attempt the questions and all. So a lot of it, was extremely personalized, extremely diligent
One
work.
of the things that Pace would do is now Atreya sends this to you in an email. He can
Hmm.
really configure. You log in, you'd see this is what you needs to do, what you need to do.
Yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
that Pace would enable that for him to
Oh,
do that.
wow. Yeah.
And it can create he can create subroutines where you say, hey, I have 5 students who are facing difficulty in boldface questions. This is a subroutine, and he can
Yeah.
trigger that the moment you log in. So this is a message from Atreya. This is what you need to do,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and so you don't have to worry about opening your email, getting distracted over there, and those subroutines can now come not just from Atreya but from us as well, so we can fine tune this precisely out there. So because Atreya is a GMAT strategy expert, he's not an SM, right?
Hmm.
And that's going to be my next question. So Atreya did was GMAT strategy, and it was very very helpful. How did you feel with regards to any SM doubts? Did you have any, and how did you get them resolved?
Yeah, so Atreya only pointed it out that, maybe I need to watch a few SM videos that have
Mm.
already been uploaded. I don't know if
Mhm.
they were already uploaded or were they shared for
Oh,
some
the
specific
strategic
special
review
links
ones.
were shared. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't remember correctly, but I there were a couple of verbal topics in which I did refer to,
Mm.
uh, those videos
Okay.
in
No,
particular.
but did you have any subject matter doubts where you say, I need to talk, I need to, I don't understand how is it that this boldface option is like this versus that? Did you have any of those?
No, I didn't speak to anyone, but I did
Mhm.
see a lot of videos posted
You
by
did
them.
say
So
about
yeah,
got it. Okay. So they were addressed. My point really was
yeah.
from an online course. A lot of people worry about SM support or support
Oh wow,
in
yeah.
general. Do you think, versus this, hey, I've got to go to a classroom because I can talk to a real person, I can get that support. Do you think that is
No,
something
I
that
guess no, I guess e-GMAT has done a great job in removing the boundaries between say an online and an offline class. Uh, it does seem. I mean, I knew all the help was available to me at my disposal,
Hmm.
so that was never an issue. I was glad that I could do this at the from the comfort of my home. So, so in that sense, it's quite a great technological intervention. All these things coming up together and all, it really makes your life much easier, especially during COVID times.
I agree with it. I think even beyond, I mean, think about, you talked about Sapiens. One of the things that Sapiens tells you is that because of our deficiency, humans invented things that allowed us to do things, achieve outcomes which weren't even possible by much better equipped animals, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. Throwing an arrow from a distance, attacking someone from a distance was only possible because we didn't have claws and sharp teeth.
Hmm.
That's why we had to
Yeah.
invent bow and arrow. In the same way,
Yeah.
you've got to invent technology, and it makes those analytics possible, which, by the way, even the best private tutor can't really figure out and see.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the beauty of what the when you build those tools, the kind of performance that you can drive out of them. So let's go back and look at some questions that people have. And I'm going to go from the very beginning. I think one of the most interesting questions, some have asked this question: practical tips for working professionals. And yeah, so what practical tips do you think? How did you take time to study? What changes, if any, did you have to make when it
No, so
came
you
down?
start valuing your time a lot more. I
Give me an
guess.
example. Did you have to change your schedule? Did you do some? Did you have to take something out of your daily routine when you started preparing for the GMAT?
Yeah, so essentially, the job of a typical working professional is you start work in the morning at say 10:30. You
Hmm.
work till whatever job demands. So in
Hmm.
my case, I would essentially shut my laptop at 8:30,
Okay.
uh, have take a half an hour break, have dinner, and
Hmm.
then from 9 to 11:30, I had to study.
That
That's
was
all the time I
as
had.
that was your typical thing. 9 to 11:30
Yeah,
is when I'm going to study.
yeah, and at that time I wouldn't even take calls from office if they. I hope my manager's not watching this, but yeah.
Hmm.
So I was quite clear about this that I have to devote this time. I mean,
Got it.
post 9, I have to sit.
Got it. And so one of the big things is you've got to figure that time slot out. And as you watch some of these other interviews,
Yeah.
there's some people who do it from 6 to 8 in the morning. There are others who do it 7 to 9. It's just
Hmm.
as long as you take that time slot out, and
Yeah.
so that you don't have to think this is when I have to study. Don't make that decision every day. Make that decision
Yeah.
once and for all. Put it on your calendar. Did you
Yeah.
communicate
Especially
it to
if
your
it was
family members?
Sundays. Yeah. No, not really. They're quite supportive of me
Hmm.
studying. But say even for Sundays, right? I mean, Sundays were for mocks. I mean,
Hmm.
nothing else. So you wake up on Sunday, you write one mock, you
Okay.
analyze it,
Hmm.
you find out your mistakes, you work on it, and
Hmm.
then take some break after that. I mean, Sunday evenings would be for some chill, but Sunday
Okay.
mornings were essentially for mocks.
Sunday mornings, high intensity. Sunday evenings, they've got to take a break. I'm not studying on Sunday evening.
Yeah,
Got it. And those decisions, if they're done ahead of time, very, very useful.
yeah.
Let's look at this over here. And again, for people who are here, how many of you have this schedule? Just from a yes, no, just a fixed study time. If you can write that down on the chat, that'd be very useful. Um, I think this is a question, and a couple of people have asked us. How long did you prepare to attain this goal? So I think I know how long you prepared. I think the question really is, if you were to do this again, right from the get go, right from your first attempt, how long do you think you would take, given what you know right now, to get to that 740?
Probably, I guess 4 to 5 months
Hmm.
is needed. You need that much time, I guess. If
Yeah,
you and then given that if you want to crack it in your first attempt, then yeah, I mean, you need that time to really ensure that you're. I think I'm right with the 4 to 5 months
a
strategy.
lot depends on the number of hours you're putting in. So
Yeah.
I can tell you this, that if you are someone who's putting in, so typically the metric that we have within e-GMAT is, for every 10 points of improvement, it's between 8 and 12 hours of effort is what you need.
Wow.
And so if you need about a 100 odd points, and again, uh, if you come at a 600 to us, that's what we'll tell you. Now, for you, Harsh, you came at a higher score, but the reason you needed more effort was because you still had to learn the right methods. You weren't using
Exactly.
you had that high score because you're a bright guy, right? And so you still had to learn the methods, and that's where it took time. But once you learn the methods, the amount of effort in Scholaranium is that doesn't take very, very long. That
Yeah,
component.
exactly. And I guess, even when I was doing those videos, a lot of
Mm.
those things I had studied earlier, but still, I had to sit through
The
them because,
clarity.
yeah, because there was this 1 or 2 points that I did that to kind of took them for granted last time, but I can't afford to do that now. So, even though it seems, they're like, Arey, I know these things, why am I doing it again? It does get a bit difficult, but you have to sit through it. I mean, there is no other option.
You have to go through. So I think that's kind of where, when we build our courses. So we have these where every piece of content you watch, we evaluate the quality of it. The reason that's important is because those 1 or 2 points that you're talking about, you shouldn't be missing that. And that's why every learning activity is evaluated. You get a score on it. In fact, one of the interesting things that we've started doing right now internally is, because we track activity within. So for example, verb modifiers, when you go through this, it's not a plain video. You have to click, 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 and click. right?
Hmm.
To go through
Yeah.
that entire
Yeah.
file. So we track all of that. So
Yeah.
we started doing, okay, for various people who achieve certain scores in Scholarinium in certain key aspects of that file, how long are they taking? Because
Wow.
if you're skipping through that, you're not getting it, and you're going to make certain mistakes in questions which test certain aspects of verb and modifiers.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Clearly, I mean, that's a fantastic technological intervention. Wow.
It's data analysis and going back and saying, with pace, and it
Hmm.
all started with what's possible with pace. With pace, you can do that intervention while you're learning the course. If I know that a thousand other people who kind of went through this part quickly faltered in these questions, and
Wow.
now I know you've went through that part quickly, you've gone through that part quickly, so there's a very high likelihood you're going to falter there. Let me put in a reinforcement while you're in the learning phase.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that is something that you can now do, or there's a possibility in the next generation you could do with pace, and then it all starts with getting those high likelihood scenarios where people would falter, and building them in over here. Let's look at this. So you talked about how you can prepare. When should you start giving mocks? I think let's look at Pervez's response.
Um, when
Yeah.
should we start giving mocks, right?
I think
So
that
it
let's kind of
depends,
ask
right?
this question in a different way. When should you not give mocks? And then you should say when should you, because I think both are
Huh.
important questions.
Yeah. See, I guess to answer your second question is probably easier. Don't
Mm,
start by giving a mock. Learn things. Learn because a lot of people do say that why don't you give a mock and you'll understand where you stand and all. But
mm,
I personally feel
mm.
that is that you wasted a mock. I mean, because getting a score, you'll probably score less. You'll get demoralized if you score very high. By fluke, you'll be
Mm. You
overconfident,
you
right?
would stop either way. You would make the wrong decision. If
Yeah,
you get
exactly.
low, if you get a low, let's say you're studying SC, you get a low score, right? And you
Yeah.
you will likely do well in SC. Then what would you do? You'd start studying CR without finishing SC.
Absolutely.
If you get a high score, and then you say, "Man, maybe I'm done with SC. Let me go to Quant."
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
If
I
you're
so, so
not
I have
done,
so I have done this. Yeah, I have done this when I had given my first when I was preparing for the GMAT for the first time. I had given the mock first, and it so what appeared to me was that okay, RC and CR can be managed, SC cannot. So I should only focus on SC first. But it's not like that. I mean, in reality, things did change quite dramatically for me. So yeah. So
I
yeah,
think one of
probably
the
yeah,
yeah,
that's
go
when you
ahead.
should
Go ahead.
not give a mock. Yeah. But I guess yeah, when you should give mock is when you have studied all the chapters, you are reasonably confident because that's when you should start.
Yeah, I'll answer this with a much more specific answer. Add a metric to what you said, which is that once you're done with cementing an e-GMAT platform, and in
Yeah,
all subsections, you should take mocks. That's where
absolutely.
that's where the test readiness phase comes in within the e-GMAT platform, and especially in e-GMAT, there's no reason you should be taking mocks. Why? Because everything that you see is tracked. You get stats for every learning activity. So you don't need to really get that reinforcement that, okay, asking yourself that question, how am I doing? And if you're
Hmm.
worried about it, write to us. We can look at the stats and tell you whether you're doing things right or not. And I mean, that's kind of where all of those 400 to 500 points come in. Um, this is again a good question. Um, yeah.
Following two modules at a time or a single module at the
I
same
think
time.
the
Can you?
question is, should I be studying CR and RC together, or CR and number properties together, or should I just focus on studying CR, or just focus on studying SC? I think that's the translation.
That depends a lot on the time that you have in the day. What's your attention span like? A lot of those factors come in, right? I mean, say if you, for me, I mean, doing math was fun, so I would do some math and then do some
Hmm.
English because I had my attention span limit that was quite low. So after one point, I can't do a lot of verbal, right? So I need a change. I need that
Yeah,
break. So
you answered this
that
really well. Yeah, go ahead. Finish this. Very well said. I mean, essentially, you can learn only one thing at a time. For you, quant wasn't learning. Quant was fun, right? And it
yeah,
was more like, okay, I have an attention. I've learned SC. It's been high intensive stuff. Quant was like cool off when it comes to workout for you.
Yeah.
And that cool off's really important because you want to learn SC the next day. You probably wouldn't have been able to do SC and CR, especially
Absolutely not.
and you are someone who came with about a 80th percentile in verbal. If you are low ability, it gets even more intensive.
Yeah.
So do one module at a time. Now the only exception to this is, if you can study 6 hours a day, then I mean, there are people who do study. I mean, those are people who actually get done in about 20-25 days. We had this one student
Yeah.
who went from 27 to 41 in about a month, and
Wow.
her name is Arshita, and many such people do it. I mean, bottom line is how many hours you put in. And it's just, what humans have a capability to achieve. I've been wrong many a times. First 2 years of our existence, I said, don't buy our course if you have 2 weeks before our test.
Hmm.
And then we got a guy, his name is Mahesh. He was I think, one of the first YouTube testimonials that we put in. This guy runs, I hope he still runs, he runs the service branch of HP. I mean, he owns that
Oh
service
wow.
branch in all of South India. And the guy went from V27 to V35, and this is 2012 we're talking about, in 1 week,
Oh
or
wow.
more specifically 5 working days.
Wow.
And because he said, I have 1 week, I run a business that has 3,000 employees. He took an off from a week, for a week, did the entire thing, got done with the GMAT, got a 700. And it's like, okay, that's all that I need. And
Wow.
so humans have the capacity to do this. It's just you have to have the time. It's just you can't really take a shortcut there.
Absolutely. I mean, there are never shortcuts in any life, so you
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah. Let's talk about how do you get a mentor? I think this is a question more for me. Or was did we get a mentor when you reach a 680 score or so, and then you can write to us and say, hey, I have a 680, I need that last mile push, and so that's kind of where we give you more personalized advice. And the reason why we don't really give you anything before that, we give you a lot of support, which tells you what to do. But if you're, let's say, studying the SC course, there isn't a whole lot that a mentor can tell you. You've got to go through the course. As you're doing number properties, there's technology built in that tells you what next to do. A mentor would not tell you what next to do. The job of a mentor is around that fine tuning piece. For you, Harsh, you came to us at that high ability score, and that's kind of where I think Atre added a lot of value once you started doing stuff in Scholaranium.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised. I was just checking my mail and I get a mail from Atreya Roy that we're giving you this mentorship. Like, okay, I didn't
Hmm.
know that something like this even existed. I mean,
Yeah, so this is what we call as a last mile push, so internally, and and the idea really is when you to hit that high performance zones, you need, not just specificity, you also need that motivation to really say, because as humans we say, hey, 720, 730, or this high accuracy, um
hmm,
I'm done with it. And we know, I mean, you really mentioned, hey, you can take a mock, you might get a very high score early on, you might say, I'm done. And as humans, we are designed to take good news and not take actions based on that. These people are trained to really see such signs and really say, okay, you never trust a singular data point. We never, and which is where, I mean, when you get a sigma x mock, you might get a 780 on one mock. We are never happy with that one mock unless and until we have this colonium
yeah,
data to back it up, and unless and until you can see that repeat performance in the 730 to 740 to 760 range in the second mock. That's when we really say, okay, it's reliable, it's repeatable, and
yeah,
and
I
and,
guess, and I guess it works the other way around as well, right? If you get a low score,
Hmm.
which you
Yes.
may, I guess your scholarly name data, which did happen to me. I mean, I did get a 710 and once in my mock. I guess
Hmm.
Atreya was quite confident that maybe you've just
This
been
is a
impatient
fluke.
with your
Yeah.
exam. Yeah, it's just one time thing. You need to come back up. Yeah.
Yeah. And for us, I mean, we had this girl who scored a 780 on her actual test. 3 days before her actual test, she got a 690 on a Sigma X mock. And she
Hmm.
wrote to DJ, and DJ said, your stats are fine, don't worry, that was just a fluke. You
Hmm.
probably weren't in the right mental space, and that can happen. Your performance can drop
Yeah.
in this
Of
case.
course. Yeah. Why not?
Yes. Let's talk about revision. How did you revise?
So yeah, I mean, I did make notes when I was studying those videos. I did make very good notes. Like after a long time, I made proper notes, like circling important things and underlining and writing even examples, I mean, I would even not miss that. So yeah, I mean, I
And
made really good notes for that.
that's the
That's the
value of the
only,
diligence. That's
yeah,
diligence for you. So, I mean,
yeah. I
someone who
still
has
have those notes with me actually. Nobody
do you
else
have them?
really
Can you just
understands it.
show them?
Yeah, yeah. Nobody really understands them, but I do. I mean, when I look at them, I know where a particular concept has been mentioned. I know that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, how did you prepare for AWA?
I didn't actually. That was a surprise. AWA comes a lot from reading, so I have a good habit of reading a lot, and it came from there. So, and the very last day, I was bugging Atreya that Atreya, you tell me what should I do for AWA. You have to tell me. Like, no, we'll figure that out in the end. You focus on the 800 first, then we'll look at AWA. And the last day, he just shared that one link with me. I went through it. I found it to be completely bogus, actually. Because it was way too much flowery language. I knew I'm not going to be able to replicate that on the exam. I'm like, okay, the 800 is a priority. Everything else can wait.
Yeah,
But I'm quite
AWA.
surprised. I got an AWS 6. I'm actually
Yeah,
that's my higher achievement. I don't. I'm not
critical
happy with the
reasoning.
Q51.
AWA
But
is
yeah.
critical reasoning if you think about it.
Yeah. So
It's
I'm quite so yeah. I mean, the topic was around share markets and company expanding into some other country and all, and so something that I do in work. That is something I do at work, helping clients and everything. So it came quite naturally. It was quite a simple problem statement for me. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is reading. Reading the newspaper, reading books. You
So
need
I,
to
I
get
don't
it.
know if you're aware that we are actually hiring people for the position of business operations consultant, and
Okay.
essentially these are people who are going to be like Atreya, who are going to help more people succeed, and one of the skills that's needed is the ability to reason logically. Because if I have to convince, if I'm a business operations consultant, if I have to convince someone like you this is the right path, I not only need to have the data analysis, but that's something that we coach, but I should be able to express myself logically.
Yeah.
And one of the tests we do is the AWA test.
Oh wow.
That's
So
I mean, very specific prompts that we've created, and you've got to write a longer version of AWA where we check about not, I mean, a typical AWA you write 2 or 3 assumptions. We check about 6 assumptions that you need to put in. So the thought process needs to be a lot deeper, but that's, I mean, and this is something that we recognize this year, and our ability to weed out people who are not suitable for this role is just quadrupled. I mean, we used to have a data analysis exercise before, and that was good, but this is way better
No, I
because
know. I can completely imagine how this section, even though it's not a part of the 800, but
Hmm.
it does add value to the MBA class. I mean,
Amazing.
it does.
I mean, you can really see the expression, how you communicate information. Is there a logical flow to it? Do you give examples when you're communicating information to substantiate your point? Are you transitioning properly? It's very similar to how you write a GMAT RC passage, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's talk about this question. Rahul says he's an e-GMAT. He says I'm a hard time with that. It feels like there's a lot of info for me to check in order to get to the right answer. What do you feel? e-GMAT as a student, he's gone through. It's probably going through the same course that you've gone through. And
Mm, I feel
how
like
did
a
you
lot
approach
of
that?
info is there for me to check in order to get. I think it's the other way around, right? It's just one sentence. One sentence, possibly even the toughest questions have only are a very short question and
No,
have very
I
few
think what
words. But
he's saying is there's all of these modifiers, comparisons, all of this that you have to check. I think that Rahul, if you're feeling the sentiment, I think you, even though you're going through the e-GMAT course, you're not following the meaning-based approach where you're saying, let me get to the meaning first without worrying about the sentences and get all the aspects out, then really get to the meaning. Now, then really get to the errors that are there in the sentence. Now, this initially when you're doing this, it will take you longer, and I think this is one of the worst interviews to give that answer, because it never, you were a smart guy, it didn't take you that long, but many people, um, most people would do that, and it's designed to be that way. But once you solve 40-50 questions with that approach, that time will automatically come down. Why? Because you'll start spotting those errors automatically. That's
yeah,
going to happen. So be methodical, go through the steps one by one, and use and trust the process. Okay. Um, okay. Is that scored? Yeah. So the 680 score, I think, for mentorship or LMP is Sigma X Mock. Yes. Um, Prashant says I scored this thing. Yeah, on 700 on GMAT prep, but I have 10 did no study stake. I have 620 on a Sigma X Mock. Um, so first of all, we only trust Sigma X mocks for the very simple reason that GMAT prep mocks really good indicators, but those questions have been out for so long.
Yeah,
We've just been bitten so many times with trusting those scores. We no longer trust those. Again, not a problem with the algo, not a problem with the questions. It's just that even when you're attempting an official mock, you if you've seen 5 questions, it makes a huge impact on the
absolutely.
validity of that score.
Yeah.
Um, so how long do you think it'll take you to get to a 760 score? I'm going to make a guess here, and I would say about 140 to 150 hours if you're putting in 7 hours, good hours a day, and 7 is the max you can put in a day, Prashant. So you're talking looking at a month or so. Having said that, if you're using the e-GMAT platform, 5 days later, you should have a plan to do. This is how much I should have completed in 5 days with these stats in there. And if you are behind that, then we need to recalibrate. If you're ahead of it, again we need to recalibrate. I think that's kind of where you don't need to. I mean, we can give you an estimate now, but those estimates can get progressively better as you go through the course and as we start seeing those stats. One thing that I'd say is understand 760 is 99 percentile. So this means that don't rush through things. You have to perfect everything. I mean, Harsh talked about those 1 or 2 things that miss out. When we rush through things, we tend to miss those things out. Do not do that. Do not rush through things or so. So that's kind of what I would have. Harsh, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I mean, 760 is a lofty target, but it's good to have high targets. So when I spoke to Atreya for the first time, he
Hmm.
asked me, "What's your target score?" And I told him 750.
Hmm.
So he's like, "Okay, yeah, you'll reach there."
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just about having those targets. I think in life, having those higher targets always helps. Going one level above what
Hmm.
you already are at. But at the same time, it shouldn't be too lofty to cause you to lose sleep or affect your health. Be in reasonable targets, and it should help you. It's always smaller steps that take you ahead.
If I'm scoring 700 plus on Manhattan test, should I complete all 6 tests? Um, Here's something that I'll tell you. When the scores that you get on tests need to be an outcome of the stats that you have on the platform. And so yes, those scores are helpful and they get there. But if you just have those scores and nothing else to show beyond that, and if you have all 6 tests, then yes, you can go take the test because you have 6 good data points out there. And MGMAT mocks are reasonably reliable. I won't call them that they're not reliable. They're reasonably reliable. And in that 700 range, 740, that I don't trust them as much, but 700 range are reasonably reliable. Or so if you get those 5 6 data points, then yes, you can go there. Um, but I mean, for me, I don't like to see just mock scores. I need to see the journey to really say I trust that the performance in the mock is not a fluke. Um, let's talk about this one question. ISB application. We didn't talk about it. I'm surprised no one has asked this question.
So I'm quite glad that ISB, like an Indian university. After long, I came across an Indian university that looks at things apart from marks. It's
More
so
holistic.
refreshing.
More holistic.
Yeah, it's so holistic. It's so refreshing because
Yeah.
I've given IITJ right before
Mhm.
that to get into college. It's always been so marks oriented, but it's always so good to see people considering giving value to other aspects of your life.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, so the ISB application, again, let's break that down. You have your typical application which you have to fill. You have your essays which are quite important and which do show about to talk about how well probably even you know yourself. I guess the essay topics. I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal them. If they change every year, I don't know.
Oh,
So I
they
won't do
don't
that.
change a whole lot. No,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can
So
reveal them.
okay,
That's
so I guess it was about how do you want to improve yourself, something that
fine.
and then the answer that I wrote is something that really came from within me. It wasn't something that I just read across on the internet or Something it's something that was quite personal to me. People said it doesn't make sense. I was strongly against that. That no, I mean, if I'm gonna write, it's gonna be this. So be honest to yourself when it comes to these applications. Interviews are very well designed, taken by alums. I am in touch with the guys who interviewed me as well. I mean, after getting when I did thank them and all, but it's actually quite a fun interview. It's just like you're having a conversation with your college senior, and not an interview. So like ISB has done a brilliant job. I mean, I'm quite glad that an Indian university has taken this lead to ensure that we break out of this rat race of marks. It sounds ironic coming from an IITian, but it does it's really a lot of fun. Like even though I have a 740 now on my GMAT, it's never a guarantee that I'm going to get into any university I want to. Right? There's a lot of things that they will consider, a lot of things that they will look at, and it's good for once to be in that kind of race as well.
Yeah, I think one of the other things which you did not mention in addition to is the holistic piece is that there aren't specific weights given to your 12th marks, your 10th marks. I mean, you could have
Exactly.
screwed up your 12th, but if you've done well professionally, you'd have a very fair shot at ISP. Um, Similarly, I mean, so I was talking to one of the former admission directors, and they say we look for it one evidence where you've excelled, and if we get one, that's pretty good. If we get two, that's fabulous. And the other things we don't care. So say for us, for example, if a high GMAT score, that's one evidence of excellence. But then the other ones need to be at least at a decent level. But on the other, if we get one and then we get another evidence of excellence, maybe you've done some fantastic leadership things at your job over the last 1 year. It's like, hey, this is all that we care. Your 12th marks, we don't care a whole lot, as long as they meet a certain threshold, which is bare minimum. And so yeah, so I mean that for me is much better than how IIMs go, where if you're a tier one institute you have a certain weight, if a 12th class has a certain. It's like, man, if
Yeah,
you're a
it,
woman
it
you have a certain weight.
I mean, nothing against IIM grads. I mean, I have a lot of respect for all those who come out of that system as well. But I
Hmm.
think it's time
Hmm.
the Indian education starts reevaluating its entry options.
Yes.
It's high time we do that. I mean, we live in a digital world. It's possible to take CAT 50 times in a year now. It should be possible. Why should it all
Hmm. Yeah, why
come
should
down
it
to
be?
that one day?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those things when we were starting this business. Like, should we used to go for credit? But it's like, hey, it's just one day that everyone's preparing for. The GMAT you can take it any time, and you can prove your course works. Why? Because people can have a prior score, and then within a month, 2 months, they can have the next score, and then you know this works. With the cat, to get a same kind of validation, it'll take you years, where you can get this in months.
yeah.
So our official exams easier than the actual GMAT. Harsh, you can talk about your input on this, and then I can go.
Mm, I don't have any comments on this. Since it's an adaptive test. I mean, there's nothing called easy or difficult, right? It's about how you are doing it.
Yeah,
So,
I think they're very accurate till you get that 730 score, and I think so in that 500 to 730 range, they're very very accurate, I would say. And when you get, so they start to become less accurate, and that's higher 700 scores. And that's kind of where the quant. I mean, at the extreme high ends, they on the quant side specifically, I think there is something where they don't do as much justice. But other than that, I mean, for 98, 99% of the people, they're very very accurate, I would say. Did you do cementing for every module? It's a
not necessary.
Yeah,
No,
you didn't
no,
need
no,
to, you
never.
came. But
Yeah.
even if you are a 600 scorer, you need to do. Let me just say this very clearly out there. Don't go solving questions blindly in Scholarly before validating cementing. Okay. So you do need to do cementing. Otherwise, you might end up wasting a ton of questions. Cementing will expose gaps much more, much more earlier in your prep, and it'll tell you that, hey, when you're talking, people are talking about taking mocks. You do go through the cementing process, three medium, three hard cementing quizzes. You get that score. We can predict what you're going to get as an ability score on the mock. So yeah, I mean, if you're someone who's starting at a 700, very different thing than someone who's starting at a 600. You've got to do cementing. So yes, you'll get there a lot faster too, for the very same reason. All right, I think we are pretty much out of time. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. If you guys liked Harsh's responses, please press the like button. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at rajat@e-gmat.com. A lot of you asked about study plans. We have our study plan session this Saturday, so you can also attempt that, join that, and understand how to get that personalized study plan. How do you track those metrics? Why is cementing important in this entire process, also? Okay. With that, I want to thank everyone and good luck and study well. And if like me, you're in the US, happy Thanksgiving. All right. Mhm. So, well, thank you, Harsh, for taking the time out. And
No, my pleasure.